Moving on now to the discussion of vice president. Who is Kamala Harris going to pick to be her candidate? Let's put this up there on the screen. There's between 7 to 12 names that have been floated out there. I'm going to start off with the most obvious and probably the front runner, I think it's fair to say, is Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, enormously popular in the state of Pennsylvania. His high approval rating obviously did very well against Doug Mastriano. Pennsylvania is a must-win state. Number 2 on the list is Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona. I personally don't think she's going to pick Mark Kelly because if he was gone, then that would open up a competitive Senate seat in a battleground state where it's been a bit of hit or miss for Democrats so far. Number 3 is apparently North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper. Now, apparently her and Cooper go way back, both serving as AGs and have some experience together. That would put him possibly higher on the list since this is such a crazy time that you definitely want somebody that you might be comfortable with. Next is Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear. He's been all over television the last couple of days, attacking J.D. Vance, really auditioning himself for the job. He was also, what is he, the most blue governor of a red state in the whole country.
He's the most popular governor, Democratic governor in the entire country.
Most popular governor in the Democrat, right. But at the same time, no one's winning Kentucky in the 2024 election. But, you know, maybe he could have some crossover rural appeal. Tim Walz is apparently on the list. That's the governor of Minnesota. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. Pritzker's a billionaire. Probably helps in terms of bringing in the money. He's also the governor of a Midwestern state. And then Gretchen Whitmer. So what are we getting? We're getting a sense of governors, boring, from the Midwest. People who are popular in their home states and can bring it home, at least in the battlegrounds, with some of these white working class voters, and we'll see. There's another list that is out there of some 12 people that are allegedly on the list. Let's see, who am I missing from the list that I spoke out? Okay, so the outside team is being vetted by Eric Holder. Some of the other people that are on the list that I missed here, I think, what was it, Tim McRaven was on the list, or Admiral McRaven.
He removed himself from consideration.
Here we go. Gina Raimondo, the current Commerce Secretary, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, I would not do that one, and Arizona.
He's gotten better.
Mark Kelly. Yes, at the same time, given his electoral track record last time and his South Carolina results, that's not somebody who I was going to pick. I don't think he did well enough in Iowa to prove that he has a real constituency outside of like hardcore Democrats. He doesn't have electoral sense really in the past, and I don't think he's got enough crossover appeal or coalition support to actually bring them in the same, when you compare him to a governor, like a governor, battle tested in the election, high approval rating, actually an executive, someone you can picture in the job, someone who Democratic voters know. I would pick a governor if I were her.
Pete, I think you could do worse than, I agree with you.
Yeah, you could do worse than Pete.
I think you could do worse than Pete. I think Pete has actually grown into his role as a regular. He's gotten much better about, you know, the things he's doing with regard to the airlines, whatever. He's very good on cable news. He is. That's what he's always excelled at.
That's his only job. Yeah.
Anyway, I do think you could do worse than Pete. That being said, personally, I'm hoping that she picks Tim Walz, because Minnesota governor. He's got this like kind of fun grandpa.
He's like Midwestern like dad.
He was a high school teacher.
Right, that's
He's a veteran, and he pushed through a, you know, truly like all the Democratic agenda items on wages and schools and the whole lot with like a 1-vote majority in the state of Minnesota. Minnesota's still sort of a swing state, so I like him. That means he probably won't get picked.
He's probably not going to get
My assumption is that the person that, you know, I want to be at the least, which is probably Josh Shapiro, is likely to get the nod. And I mean, the electoral calculus here, I understand from their perspective, like, oh, it's Pennsylvania, and he won by a lot. However, I think there are also risk factors with him that they are probably likely to overlook, which is, as I've mentioned a few times, like, I think people are watching very closely right now what Kamala says and does with regard to Israel. Big part of the reason why Joe Biden was performing so poorly with young people was about Israel and the genocide in Gaza. She's getting a little bit of grace on that. And Shapiro was very outspoken with regard to the college protests, and he took a lot of action to quash the college protests, and he compared Palestinian protesters to pro-Palestine protesters to the KKK. Mm-hmm. That's a hard thing to get past. He's also has a lot of skepticism from unions because he was aggressively pro-charter school in the state of Pennsylvania as well. So while I understand the electoral calculus with it being, Pennsylvania and him being popular, and he's good on camera and he does all the politician-y things well, et cetera. And he has some policy track record that I would be amenable to. David Sirota points this, track record of holding power to account at certain times. That's going to be a tough pill for people who really care about Israel-Gaza to swallow. So I think there's a risk that she undercuts the high level of excitement and enthusiasm and democratic unity that she's benefiting from right now.
It's possible. I don't want to overestimate how much it actually is, because I think that the craziness of the election is going to just, in terms of the enthusiasm and in terms of the defining issues, already the media attention on Gaza is probably like 1/50th of what it was previously. And a lot of people are just going to suck it up and they're going to vote for Kamala. I think a lot of people would have sucked it up and voted for Joe Biden anyways, a lot less. But now, because she's so undefined, all she has to do is kind of not taking a real stance on the issue, and she's kind of the beneficiary of both. That's what I would do if I were her. I'll tell you this about Josh Shapiro. That man, all he knows how to talk about is abortion, and he's good at it. So my sister-in-law showed me his TikTok account. This guy has got hundreds of thousands of TikTok followers. Every single thing he posts is about abortion, and I hate to say it, it's good. He actually does well. He does the blinking meme where he's like, me whenever Republicans are trying to ban abortion, he's like, blink, 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 and it's got hundreds of thousands of views. And it's like me when Republicans are radically trying to do a national abortion ban, he's like 50 versions of that. He's quite talented at it. I mean, he's one of those where I think he messages correctly on the issue. And so if I were her, and I'm focusing in on 271 electoral votes, I think he's probably the best pick, especially she's less connected to Israel-Gaza. You can have Whitmer can bring it home for you in a similar way, especially to stump. You're more undefined on the issue. And, at the end of the day, what were we really talking about here? 1 million people or so are going to vote on Israel-Gaza. There's probably going to be 100 million people who cast their votes. Now, if you do it in the right way, strategically, it was going to make an impact. But it's not Biden. It's just different.
Yeah.
Whenever it's not the guy who literally, bear hugged Netanyahu. It's just fundamentally it's very different.
I think it's more of an issue than you do, but I accept that, and I regret to admit that they're probably looking at it similarly to how you are. Now, what could be more of a problem for them is that Shapiro had settled some sexual harassment allegation.
I did see it, but it was about his staff. It wasn't him.
But if you're trying to make that contrast with Donald Trump and that's hanging over him, I could see that being a hang up for them in terms of the vetting process. And then the other thing that's been floated, I don't really buy this, that he's Jewish. And so, if you're looking for that just straight up white dude, which seems to be the tenor of the conversation, that he may not fit the bill, but I don't know that I really.
don't think his being a Jew matters.
I don't think so either. But I
Wait,
don't know if that. I don't know. Yeah, people have been saying that. I don't know how they're looking at it.
What do they think?
I don't think it matters either. But
he's a member of the Jewish faith.
I know, but
what?
Anyway, that's out there. The other one. So I like Tim Walz.
Yeah.
Andy Bashir is interesting. I think he's an interesting contrast with J.D. Vance, being from Kentucky, being able to speak about Appalachia. That's the contrast he's trying to make. He's pro-labor. He has had a track record, obviously, of extreme success in a very difficult state. So that's appealing for him, even though Kentucky obviously not a swing state. I feel like Roy Cooper has a good shot at it, because they have that long personal relationship. I don't know how she's looking at the choice. If I was making the choice, I would want someone that I knew and outside of just this 2-week time frame. I'm not sure who else she may have that personal relationship with, but I know Roy Cooper. She's done a number of events with him here. They know each other from the time when they were AGs. He's much more in terms of he's a very safe and cautious politician in terms of North Carolina, and he also has been very successful in a state that is pretty much red.
Right.
Could they potentially put North Carolina in play? I think possibly. Biden only lost it by less than 2 percentage points last time around, so maybe with some of the demographic shifts that having Kamala at the top of the ticket potentially portends, that's a possibility. The downside with him is Democrats are looking at, hey, this guy could run for Senate in North Carolina, have a shot down the road, and you are taking him off the board for that. So I don't know if that's a factor. I'm not sure. The Mark Kelly, you could put D2 up on the screen. one of the issues that the left and a lot of labor unions have had with Mark Kelly is he was one of the only Democrats who had not signed on to the PRO Act, which is, this sort of like comprehensive pro-labor legislation that Democrats under the Biden administration were pushing. Now under pressure, he's like, oh, no, I of course I support it. Of course I would vote for it. Okay. There are other reasons that unions are concerned about him as well. Some nominees, pro-labor nominees that he voted against and had issues with. So it's outside of just the PRO Act, but that was kind of the most glaring issue for him. But in terms of his pick, I think you're right, Saagar. The biggest problem for him is, are they really going to want to put his seat into play in Arizona and, risk that? I think that's a problem for him.
Well, here's a conversation we all just had, which we left out the most important constituency, the donors. The donor class loves Josh Shapiro, right? This is one where he has made it a point with the Israel thing, but many other issues as well. The charter school thing is a real tell, right, about what exactly is happening here. And if I were the donor class, we know, Krystal, we know their politics. There's news out this morning that Reid Hoffman apparently gave $7 million to Kamala and was like, well, you got to fire Lena Khan, if something like that happens. So they're making their plays too. And Kamala may actually be more donor dependent, maybe as much donor dependent as Trump now at this point, because she's late to the game and she's got to make up some of this cash. She's got the $100 million, but she's going to need probably a 1.5 billion to contend with the Republican super PAC machine. So the money, while it is there are certain things that come with that price. And because she was anointed and will be a product of super delegates and more at the DNC, those donors are probably going to have even more of an outside impact on the VP selection. So that's why, if you look at their ideology too and the way they look, that's not a bad case to make.
I mean, I think if you're going with the donor pick, you're probably picking Pete.
True. Yeah, they love him. They do love Pete.
Because Shapiro does have some track record, and I'll have to look back at the things David Sirota has written, but he does have some genuine track record of challenging, I think, tech and being a little more skeptical of corporate power. So I'm not sure that he would be as beloved. I'm just not sure. I know the donors love Pete, so maybe he's got more of an inside track than we really think here. But it'll be interesting. Like I said, my working assumption is whoever I want the least is going to end up in it. So that would probably be Josh Shapiro.
Right, that's right. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show. Help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.